Just ahead on American Black Journal, hundreds of young people in Detroit are getting a college education thanks to Detroit's first black mayor. We'll talk with the head of the Coleman A. Young Foundation. Plus, Detroiters get a chance to tell their own story about the city through the lens of a camera. We'll get details on the One Day in Detroit video project. Stay with us.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. For the past 32 years, the Coleman A. Young Foundation has made it possible for Detroit students to get a college education. The city's late mayor established the foundation to provide scholarships and mentoring to young people with leadership potential. More than 460 students have been recipients, and 90% of them have graduated from college. Here to talk about the foundation and its upcoming awards event is Executive Director Kari Turner, and joining him is one of this year's scholars, Ian McNeil from Loyola High School. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you again.
Absolutely, good to see you again. I think when people think of Coleman A. Young, you can say that name and get an instant response from everybody in this region.
No gray.
Good, bad, and not a lot of gray either. Yeah. I don't know that a lot of people necessarily associate that name, though, with the scholarship fund, which really is the biggest part of his legacy, the most sort of tangible part of his legacy.
And they don't, and it's interesting that Mayor Young, one of his greatest accomplishments, according to his own opinions, was the establishment of the foundation.
Of the foundation, yeah. Sure.
He wanted us to get to the point, Stephen, where when we get to this day, 17, 18 years after his passing, we could look at young people like Ian and see him.
Right, right.
He ultimately wanted his impact on the city to be personal. And fortunately, we've been able to keep that going for 32 years.
Right, right. And so, Ian, you're one of the new scholars. You're a senior at Loyola High School, we should say, a wonderful Jesuit institution where, of course, I have no bias with regard to that. Both Kari and I, of course, are graduates of UOD Jesuit.
You know it.
We're big fans of Loyola. Tell me, though, about your involvement with the scholarship fund, what that means, and what you're doing next year.
Well, it means a lot to me because it's helping me to pay for college. It's going to help me pay for Tuskegee University. That's where I'm going next year. And I got to type in some essays how I am a leader. So for me to look back on the essays, I could see, wow, I have achieved a lot. I am a leader.
Yeah. So tell me about what some of the things you put in those essays.
I put in the community service hours I do first. On Thursdays is Beaumont Hospital. It's an LWEP experience, so it's like I went there and I got to go off of different people's attitudes. Like I got to meet different people, how they think Detroit is. So it's like sometimes you don't really run into the happy Detroiter.
Yeah,
it's different. And then every Tuesday I'll go to Jesu and I get to help the little first graders. Yeah. So it's pretty fun there.
I went to Jesu.
Yeah, see, it's a pretty small community, right? So this event on next Tuesday, annual event, this is the big fundraising opportunity for the foundation.
This is our big deal. We get a chance to recognize Ian and about 16 other new scholars. Ian's scholarship has been provided courtesy of DTE Foundation, and there's a special emphasis on participants in the DAPSET program, Detroit Area Pre-College Engineering Program. They're neighbors of ours. We're in the same building, and it's nice to be able to recognize these young people. But this is also our clarion call to the community that we're still here, we're doing the work, and we need the support.
Right.
Most of our funding comes not necessarily just from foundations and corporations, but also from individuals.
Right.
And we believe that if more people know about the work that we do, that the foundation does, and the fact that we're literally helping students who are coming from different states of hardship to lift themselves and their families out of poverty or out of other states of struggle or despair, then more people would be willing to get behind that,
Right,
you know, because
right.
these are the young people who are becoming the Stephen Hendersons of the community, and 60% of those 90% graduated are coming back to the
Coming
city.
back to the city, right?
Yeah,
And that's
so-
one of the emphases of the scholarship program, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a real investment
Yeah.
into the future of the city and its leadership.
Right.
So I'm honored to be at the head of it. You know, I thank Mayor Young for creating something that's given me, you know, a career that I can place passion into, and we just continuously ask the community to get behind us.
Right, right. What's the reaction you get though from people when you say we're the Coleman A. Young Foundation? I would imagine that there's some people who hear that name and have the reaction that a lot of people in this region still have.
Well, you know, Stephen, I'll share a story that wouldn't be a surprise to you. There's always an initial reaction of either admiration or aversion.
Uh-huh.
However, this is the thing about Mayor Young that people don't know. Beyond the politics, this man took his last $3 million, gave $1 million to Wayne State to create a professorship position.
The
that still
endowed chair
exists,
that's
the
there,
endowed
right.
chair. And the other $2 million created the platform endowment that created this
The
foundation.
scholarship fund.
So he died with very little to his name.
Right.
You know, that flies in the face of what most people think about him.
Sure.
And as a result, he's created this wealth of talented young people, almost, you know, going on 500, that have been able to get to and through college. We don't just give them the money,
Right.
we mentor them all the way through.
Right.
And then they come back as our alumni and get involved.
Right.
The people who interviewed Ian, 7 of 8 of them were our alumni.
Were other kids who'd gotten scholarships.
Yeah,
right?
so they come back and they help us to uphold that standard.
Yeah.
So, you know, once we talk about that, the negative opinions of Mayor Young have a way of just fading away.
Right.
Because he put his money where his mouth
Right.
is ultimately.
Right. The mentoring part of this is a huge part. You've got to be looking forward to sort of being part of a community by getting the scholarship.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had a chance to meet with the other kids who are receiving scholarships this year?
In the interview room, I met some of them from Cass and everywhere else.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I met them. I don't know which ones have won the scholarship.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit about how things are at Loyola. Again, a place that's pretty close to my heart. It's good to see somebody from there getting this scholarship and going on to school, but that's a special place, not just because of the education that you're getting there, but the service component, which you talked a little bit about.
Yeah, it's we have a lot to do in the city of Detroit. A lot of community service. All seniors would do, juniors, sophomores. Everybody gets together, and Loyola's like a family-based school. It's very small. It's not like UAD,
Right.
but it's very small. It's I was happy moving from Florida to come up to Detroit and
Wow.
go to Loyola because I felt like it's more fitting for me. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, yeah. The mentoring part of this program, how does that work for the kids once they're in it, once they're in school?
It's hardcore hands-on. So Ian's going to get a Facebook request from me personally. Facebook, Uvu, phone calls, emails. We require our students to turn in 3 progress reports per semester,
Okay.
signed by their professors. That's how we track academic progress. So it also positions us to respond if there's any hint of trouble or a need for extra support. And then each scholar has to do 10 hours of community service, either with the foundation or something reported to the foundation. So we know that you're not just at school not using your time
Right.
to the best of your ability.
Right.
We want you to be involved and active. There are network events for scholars when they come home.
Right.
And then at times we also help them to find internships, you know, so that when you come home during those summer months, you know, we can help a guy like
Something to
Ian.
do, sure.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe he wants to go and spend a summer working in someone's, you know, person X's office and learning the nuts and bolts of what he's studying to do later on.
Sure.
So that's pretty much how it works, and as a result, that's how we make sure that
Yeah.
90% of these.
Yeah, I was going to say
graduate.
that has to have a lot to do
Oh, yeah.
with that 90%
Oh, yeah.
graduation rate, and that is that is the thing that we struggle with,
Exactly.
particularly in this city, with young black
Exactly.
males going to school and finishing. They'll
Yeah.
get in and they'll start, but they don't get through. And the two big reasons are what? Money and support.
And support.
You guys are really focused on both of those.
Exactly. And you know, the thing that we found, Stephen, is that once you take someone who's already experienced some form of adversity prior to college,
Right.
and just kind of stay close to them, by the time they encounter those issues that come up in the transition to collegiate life,
Sure.
they're ready to handle it, you know, and all they need to do sometimes is have someone that they know they can call on, you know. So, hey, Kari, how would you handle this, you know? And we talk about it, and we don't try to give them the right information. We try to mentor from the heart and from our own experience.
Right.
You know, my managers on my staff are Coleman Young alum. You know, so we're all vested in this thing.
A lot of skin in the game.
Exactly,
right?
a lot of skin in the game. So, you know, this is passion work. You know, we're tied to it, and our I should say that our graduation rate is almost a third, 30% higher than the state of Michigan's.
Yeah.
Which is hovering around 62%.
Right.
So we're really proud and very protective of that. So, you know, Ian's going to be hearing a lot from us.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about studying?
Architecture.
Architecture. Wow, that's a long haul. You'll be in school a while.
5 years.
5 years, right? Yeah. No, that's very good. Well, I have to say I'm a new board member of the foundation,
Indeed.
so
Thank
I'm
you.
really proud that I was asked to do that, and I'm really proud of you, Ian, for
We're proud to
what
have
you've
you.
achieved. Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just ahead on American Black Journal, hundreds of Detroiters use video cameras to capture a day in the city. That's next, right after this look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1964, My Guy by Mary Wells became the nation's #1 song. It was recorded on the Motown Records label. In 1914, Joe Louis Barrow was born in Alabama and raised in Detroit's Black Bottom. He became one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. And in 1970, First Independence Bank opened for business. It was Michigan's first Black-owned commercial bank. These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
What's a day in Detroit really like? Hundreds of people use video cameras and smartphones to document life in the D during a 24-hour period in April. The project's called One Day in Detroit, and it's part of a larger effort to create an interactive archive and TV series on the future of the American city. Here's a glimpse at a day in Detroit.
We are at the cutting edge of the effect of the end of the industrial age. The grandchildren of the 107,000 workers who were at Ford Rouge in 1950, you know, are left in this debris.
People are moving to Detroit for unique reasons, because they think that they can make a difference and because they think that they can try something a little bit different to solve a social problem.
The wonderful thing here is that there's such an emphasis on creation and kind of this bootstrap mentality that everyone really seems to have.
I claim to be no expert of the city of Detroit. I'm a student of the city. I don't think the city just needs their wounds to be bandaged. I mean, I can get criticized for looking at only maybe the brokenness or what's wrong with the city, people who are broken or hurting. You actually need to go deeper and go inside and find out the core of an issue. Knowing that all these plagues I'm depicting are able to be transformed into something that is redemptive, something that brings life, that brings wholeness, that brings goodness into the city.
These are normal, everyday people that want to be a part of the change.
When we started this, the grass was over my children's head.
See, it's not just here. There are other neighborhoods that are sprouting up, and they're finding ideas and they're trying them. You may not hear about it every day on the news, but if you go to the neighborhoods and you meet the people that are actually engaged on the ground level, you'll see that it's truly catching on.
I'm pleased to welcome Stephen McGee, local producer of the One Day in Detroit event, and Walter Marshall, a filmmaker and ambassador for the project. Welcome to American Black Journal. Boy, that film, just for that segment right there, is so powerful and gives you such a sense of the city, and not just, you know, I always say this, that the city is not just the the buildings that are here and the way it looks. It's the people who live here and what they do. And it's clear from that clip that you guys really capture that in this project.
Well, thank you. That was basically just, I woke up around 6 a.m. because of my baby.
Yeah.
So we got to see the sunrise.
Yeah.
And then we had a planned day, but the amazing thing was that was just my efforts. 24 hours with 360 people, we covered the city pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me about where this idea come from.
Well, there was a bootstrap group of filmmakers from New York and Los Angeles who wanted to film in every country around the world on the same day in 2010. So they put that together, and that's a lot of pre-production to get contacts in all those countries.
Right.
And so it came, they filmed on 10-10-10, and it went off without a hitch, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then they had some momentum after that, and so 4 years later now, they wanted to do it in American cities. So 11 cities were chosen, Detroit was one of them, and they asked me to be the local producer.
Yeah, and I can imagine the answer to this, but why was Detroit one of the 11, do you think?
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking that why 11 cities, why not 12 or 10?
Right.
You know, and so I think what I heard the story was they had 10 cities, and they just kept on hearing about Detroit.
Yeah.
And that there was positive momentum here, even though the majority of what's said is the challenges, the very well documented challenges.
Right.
And so they came here in late last year to look at firsthand, and their experience, their first day was like, what is this city about?
Yeah.
The second day was, okay, I can kind of get it. Third day was like, I want to move here.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the visual narrative that we need to tell the world, because it is, there is a visual offset by the challenges and the blight, plus the headlines that are sometimes focusing on the challenges. So to bring them into the point where, like, there's real people doing some pretty amazing block by block approach to bringing back our city is kind of the big effort from this project.
Yeah. Well, and Walter, that gets right to your role here as ambassador. You take this stuff and show other people this is what this city is about. This is who this city is about. This is who lives here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about how you guys would use this.
Well, we focused on the Cody Rouge community, and the Cody Rouge community is a fabulous, comeback story. A lot of great leaders who are devoted to that community, not leaving, bringing programs. So in doing a documentary on Cody High School, Steven said, hey, we're doing this project, and I said, absolutely. So I use that as an opportunity to just, shoot as much as I possibly could in one day at Cody Rouge. So we followed some leaders and some other businesses.
So the documentary, that's interesting. I didn't know that. You're doing a documentary about Cody High School.
That's correct. So, there's a lot of organizations that have come in and helped support and turn, like Cody High School was run by gangs.
Right.
Right. There was a lot of crime and, a lot of things, but, there are a lot of leaders just, passionate about the kids, and they're not giving up. So like the Detroit police, they have programs in there to prevent crimes and, just turn kids and give them other options.
Yeah.
So, we're very fortunate of
and United Way is really involved in that school.
Foundation.
They've divided it into
3 different
smaller academies. The kids get more personalized attention.
Absolutely.
I remember going there several times the first year they did that, and I haven't been back recently, but I would imagine that it's a lot.
It's amazing.
Different.
It's amazing.
And so this is a documentary that you'll do what with?
Well, we're telling the story of all these organizations coming in and investing in the community.
Yeah.
And when I came in and I met everyone, I just wanted to give them a voice.
Yeah.
So it was just to give them an opportunity to share their stories, like the Cody Alumni Association. There's
it's a school with very important and rich history.
Yeah, rich history, very rich. So just trying to capture the story and just trying to just show all the amazing things, and they've come so far. Michelle Parker, Jonathan Matthews, Kenyatta Campbell.
Some of the principals.
These leaders, and the community is just amazing. And, I interviewed one person, and they said that Cody Rouge is, it's coming back just like Detroit. you know,
and not getting as much attention as other places.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we're very fortunate to be a part of One Day in Detroit, and just being able to shoot as much as we could in that one day to tell that story.
Right. So how do you sew all this stuff together? All these different people take this footage. How do you make one presentation out of it?
That's a good question. I mean, Walter represents about 40 filmmakers that were very well, they had great contacts already in communities. And I think one challenge for people telling the story of Detroit is the relationship aspect with your subjects.
Yes.
Because people don't have the budget to spend a year here or live here for 6 years like our ambassadors did and do. And so Walter had this existing project, and he got to further the project on April 26th.
I see.
And already have those contexts and storylines lined up. And so talking to every one of those filmmakers, I got to see kind of this broad scope of where Detroit's story was going, without really any intention of directing it anywhere, just trying to strengthen each individual aspect and make sure that geographically Detroit was also covered.
Right.
So looking at that kind of narrative geographically, as well as what the filmmakers wanted to focus on, I got to also see the holes in the areas and kind of strengthen those holes through people who had contacts in those neighborhoods, or by giving equipment like cell phone cameras in those areas, just to make sure that we were represented.
So that you're showing the full
Yeah, I mean, 140 square miles of stories. It's a big city, and it's larger than any other participating city. But we also had more participation than any other city.
Is that right?
When LA has access to 13 million people. New York City has Manhattan and the surrounding boroughs.
Right.
And so it's pretty amazing that the nation's focus is on the city of Detroit, but then also our own understanding of ourselves is changing, and our own understanding of what we're talking about, I think, isn't really hitting every single doorstep, but it will soon, hopefully, through this project. And so we're uploading our footage today, and until you get the full scope of what people have actually documented, it's hard to say how we're going to put it all together, but the end product will be a 3-part series on cities for national public broadcasting in the late part of this year, where we'll be able to incorporate all the footage from all 11 participating cities, which is kind of exciting to see Detroit next to New York and Los Angeles.
The comparison.
In comparison, and kind of be like, hey, you know, New York is talking about us too.
Right, right. Was there anything that you've seen so far out of the footage that was shot that surprised you, something that you didn't really expect to see?
I think that the interesting elements were just seeing where people were that day, because some people had planned agendas and some people just kind of let the day follow,
let
just
it go,
explore it. Yeah. And so one interesting element was I couldn't particularly get access to Bill Clinton and Mayor Duggan when he was in town. Because of Secret Service background checks. I asked them on Thursday. You know, that's pretty quick for a turnaround for a president.
Yeah.
And so some of the filmmakers that were going to be directly with President Clinton in Shinola that day were my filmmakers for the day. And so I just said, hey, are you going to be filming President Clinton? And they're like, yeah, we're behind the scenes with him every single minute. And so I've talked to Shinola, and they're willing to also participate in One Day in Detroit. And that kind of shows just the type of access we had to different areas. And we got to give I'm really excited to see this 8th grade student who's a filmmaker and a photographer named Naomi in the Southwest. We gave her a cell phone camera to do her own filming, and she went around and did her own story. And then we had a film crew follow her for a few just to be able to see her doing that. And so I think that kind of collective voice is going to be pretty strong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're a photographer and a filmmaker, you know, done incredible work about this city. If you had one thing you wanted to tell people, and then this is for both of you, we've got about 2 minutes left. If there was one thing you wanted people to know about this city that you think they don't know, that you see, what would it be?
I think particularly with Detroit is a great example where you can see an empty building and you can either see its brokenness or you can see its potential.
Sure.
Coming in as an immigrant, as somebody looking for work, like so many people have come to Detroit.
Yes.
That was the reason why I came here in 2005.
Yeah.
I just saw hope everywhere. I saw the potential. And I think that's also with the human condition. You know, you can either see people's problems or you can see the hope in them.
Yeah.
And I think the strong elements here allow people who are seeing the potential in Detroit to not only just try and build a city, but build individuals.
Yeah.
And so looking at that block by block, honestly 6 to 7 meetings a day, 40 emails, you know, sometimes at once, to see just what is this actually happening?
What's possible?
What's
yeah.
possible
Yeah.
has encouraged me to keep my family here.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think Steven said it. It's hope. You know, I moved back to Detroit after film school in 2005. And, you know, with One Day in Detroit, I just see the future of just being able to have a film industry here where we can collaborate, you know, and if residents, you know, buy local when we produce films, you know, that will create a film, you know, economy here. So.
Wow. Okay, that's great. I look forward to the finished product, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. And as always, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time on American Black Journal.
This program is part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.